The medical facility on Pristine Prime was quiet except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Hana sat beside Taemin's bed, her hand holding his. She had been there for 3 weeks now, barely sleeping, refusing to leave his side. The doctor said his injuries were severe. The explosion had damaged his neural implants and caused significant trauma to his brain. They weren't sure when he would wake up, or if he would wake up. "You promised," Hana whispered to his still form. "You promised you would survive. You promised I could tell you what I needed to say." She had said the words when she pulled him from the wreckage, but he hadn't heard. Now she repeated them every day, hoping somehow he could sense her presence the way he had sensed everything else. News of the Sanctuary Prime evacuation had spread across the Galactic Council like wildfire. 50,000 lives saved. An impossible mission completed. The blind human and the defective Valerian had become legends overnight. But the celebration felt hollow to Hana. What did any of it matter if Taemin never opened his eyes again? The door opened. Hana looked up, expecting a doctor. Instead, her father walked in. Lord Ji-hoon of House Valaris looked older than she remembered, his scales dulled by age, his crest less vibrant. She hadn't seen him in 5 years. "Father," she said, her voice cold. "Hana." Ji-hoon stopped at the foot of the bed, looking at Taemin's unconscious form. "I heard about what happened. About everything. Did you come to gloat? To remind me that I should have stayed hidden like you wanted?" "No." Ji-hoon pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "I came to apologize." Hana stared at him in shock. Her father never apologized. Pride was everything to Valerians, especially to noble houses. "I was wrong," Ji-hoon continued, his voice heavy with regret. "When you were born different, I was afraid. Afraid of what others would say. Afraid of how they would treat you. I thought sending you away, keeping you hidden in administrative roles would protect you. But I was a coward. I let fear dictate my actions, and I hurt you more than any mockery could have." "Why are you telling me this now?" Hana asked. "Because watching you succeed where the Council's best failed, watching you risk everything to save strangers, made me realize something. You were never the one who was defective, Hana. We were. Our entire culture, our obsession with appearance, our shallow definitions of worth. You proved that competence and character matter more than scales and crests. You proved it in a way no one can deny." Tears burned in Hana's eyes. "He's the one who saw it first. Taemin. He treated me like I mattered from the very beginning. He saw past all the things that made me unacceptable to our people. Then he's wise beyond his years." Ji-hoon looked at Taemin with respect. "Kwan's sabotage has been exposed. Commander Yuna presented evidence to the Council. Combined with testimony from the colonists you saved, the case was undeniable. Kwan has been stripped of his titles and exiled." "Good," Hana said flatly. "The Council has also launched investigations into Valerian cultural practices. There's talk of reforms, of changing our laws regarding appearance-based discrimination. You started something, Hana, something important. I don't care about politics right now. I just want him to wake up." Ji-hoon reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. The touch was tentative, uncertain. They had been strangers for so long. "I know I have no right to ask, but may I stay? I'd like to be here when he wakes. I'd like to meet the person who saw what I was too blind to see." Hana nodded, unable to speak. They sat together in silence, waiting. Days turned into weeks. The human ambassador, Bo-ra Kim, visited frequently, bringing reports of the political fallout from the mission. Multiple species were praising humanity's commitment to humanitarian work. Earth's standing in the Council had never been higher. But Bo-ra, like Hana, seemed more concerned with Taemin's recovery than political gains. "He was always stubborn," Bo-ra said one afternoon, sitting across from Hana. "Even after losing his sight, he refused to quit, refused to accept limitations. That stubbornness might be what saves him now. Or what got him into this mess," Hana said bitterly. "He made a choice, a brave, stupid, heroic choice, and 50,000 people are alive because of it." Bo-ra leaned forward. "Hana, whatever happens, you should know that Taemin talked about you in his reports. He said you were the most competent officer he'd ever worked with. He said you restored his faith in partnerships. He said more than that to me," Hana whispered, "right before he left to hold off that fleet. Then hold on to that. Let it give you hope." On the 23rd day, something changed. Hana was dozing in her chair when she felt movement. Taemin's hand twitched in hers. Her eyes snapped open. "Taemin?" His face moved slightly. His eyelids fluttered. The monitoring equipment's beeping changed rhythm. Hana pressed the emergency call button, her heart racing. Doctors rushed in, checking his vitals, adjusting equipment. Hana was pushed aside, but she couldn't look away. After several minutes that felt like hours, Taemin's eyes opened. He looked confused, disoriented. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, barely a whisper, "Hana?" She pushed past the doctors and grabbed his hand. "I'm here. I'm right here. Did everyone?" "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "All 50,000. Everyone made it. You did it." A weak smile crossed his face, then confusion. "My implants. I can't sense anything. Everything's dark." The lead doctor, a Valerian named Dongwu, stepped forward. "The explosion damaged your neural implants significantly. We had to shut them down to prevent further brain damage. We can repair them, but it will take time. Several weeks, possibly months." Taemin's expression showed fear. Without his implants, he truly was blind in every sense. No thermal signatures, no electromagnetic patterns, just darkness. "It's okay," Hana said quickly, squeezing his hand. "I'll be your eyes until they're fixed. I'll describe everything to you. You're not alone." He turned his head toward her voice, his blind eyes searching for her even though they couldn't see.
"The thing you wanted to tell me."
"After the mission." "Can you tell me now?" Hana laughed through her tears. "You stubborn man. You almost died and that's what you're worried about?" "It's important to me." She leaned close, her voice soft but clear. "I love you, Taemin. I have for weeks now. You're the first person who ever saw me, really saw me, and you're the first person I ever let myself care about. So yes, I love you, and you're stuck with me now because I'm not leaving your side until you're completely healed." Taemin's smile grew stronger. "I love you too. And for the record, I knew. I could sense it in your thermal signature every time we worked together. Your heat pattern changed when you looked at me. It got warmer, brighter. I just didn't know if you knew it yet. You could sense that? I could sense everything about you." His expression became sad. "I just wish I could sense you now. I feel so lost without my implants." "Then I'll be your anchor," Hana said. "Describe me. Tell me what you sensed before. I want to hear it." Over the following hours, as Taemin regained strength, they talked. He described how he had perceived her through his implants, the patterns of heat and energy that had formed his image of her. She described her appearance in Valerian terms, the asymmetrical scales and stunted crest that marked her as defective. He listened and then said the words that made her cry again. "None of that matters. It never did. You are beautiful where it counts, Hana. In your heart, in your mind, in your courage. That's what I saw. That's what I'll always see." In the corner of the room, Ji-hoon watched his daughter fall in love with the blind human who had changed everything, and for the first time in years, he felt hope that perhaps Valerian society could change too. If his daughter and this remarkable human could challenge centuries of prejudice, maybe anything was possible. The road to recovery would be long. Political battles still waited, but for now in this quiet medical room, two people who had been called defective and broken held each other and proved that love sees deeper than eyes ever could. The transport fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velos system. 6 ships, each carrying evacuation pods and medical supplies. Nothing that looked military. Nothing that would trigger the warring factions into immediate attack. Taemin stood on the bridge of the lead ship, his neural implants processing the flood of electromagnetic data from the system. 3 major fleet concentrations, he said, his fingers moving across the tactile display. 1 at bearing 270, 1 at 045, and 1 directly ahead at bearing 180. They're forming a triangle around Sanctuary Prime. "Any signs they've detected us?" Hana asked from her station. She was coordinating with the other 5 ships, ensuring everyone knew their roles. "Not yet. We're reading as civilian vessels, but that won't last long once we start the evacuation." Commander Yuna stood at the tactical station. She had insisted on coming despite Hana's protests. "We have 48 hours at most before those fleets close in and turn the planet into a war zone. That's 48 hours to evacuate 50,000 people. Then we better not waste time," Taemin said. "All ships proceed to Sanctuary Prime. Stay in formation. Look harmless." The fleet moved deeper into the system. Taemin's implants tracked the electromagnetic signatures of the warring fleets. He could sense their weapon systems, their communication arrays, their engine patterns. It was like reading a 3-dimensional map written in energy and heat. "They're watching us," he said. But nobody's moving to intercept yet. They're curious. Let's hope they stay curious long enough, Hana muttered. The fleet entered orbit around Sanctuary Prime. The planet was beautiful from space, blue and green with white clouds, but Taemin's sensors detected the scars of recent bombardments, the heat signatures of burning settlements, the electromagnetic chaos of a world at war. Beginning evacuation procedures, Hana announced. All transports deploy to your assigned sectors. Stay in constant communication. If you encounter resistance, withdraw immediately. No heroics. The ships dispersed, landing at strategic points around the planet. Taemin and Hana took a shuttle down to the capital city, where most of the colonists had gathered. The spaceport was crowded with frightened people, humans and several other species, all desperate to escape. We need organization, Hana said, surveying the chaos. Her tactical mind immediately began categorizing the crowd, calculating optimal loading patterns, children and elderly first, then families, then individuals. Medical cases get priority regardless of category. Taemin reached out with his implants, sensing the electromagnetic signatures of the colonists' ID chips. I can track everyone's position. I'll coordinate the flow to prevent bottlenecks. You handle the logistics. They work together like a machine, perfectly synchronized. Hana directed the loading teams, ensuring maximum efficiency. Taemin used his unique perception to monitor crowd movement, predicting problems before they happened and redirecting people to prevent crushes or conflicts. Hours passed. The first transport lifted off, packed with refugees, then the second, then the third. The operation was going smoothly, almost too smoothly. Something's wrong, Taemin said suddenly. His implants had detected a shift in the electromagnetic patterns above. The enemy fleet at bearing 270. They're moving. Fast. Yuna checked her tactical display, her face going pale. They're 3 hours ahead of schedule. Someone tipped them off. Quan, Hana said, her voice cold with fury. He must have leaked our timeline. A massive warship dropped out of hyperspace directly above the city. Its weapon systems powered up, thermal signatures blazing across Taemin's perception like deadly stars. All transports, accelerate loading, Hana commanded. We have minutes, not hours. Get as many people out as you can, Taemin said. He turned to Yuna. Take Hana and get on the next transport. What are you going to do? Hana demanded. Someone needs to hold them off. Give you time to finish the evacuation. He moved toward the shuttle. There's a defense platform in orbit. Automated systems. I can pilot it remotely. That's suicide. Hana grabbed his arm. Taemin, you'll be one ship against an entire fleet. One ship with a pilot who can sense electromagnetic patterns before they're executed. One ship buying time for 50,000 lives. He touched her face gently. Remember what you wanted to tell me after the mission? I want to hear it. So I'm going to survive this. But I need you to finish the evacuation. That's your mission. This is mine. Their eyes met, his blind gaze somehow finding hers with perfect accuracy. Promise me you'll survive, Hana whispered. I promise. Now go save those people. Taemin launched the shuttle, racing toward the orbital defense platform. Behind him, Hana forced herself to turn away to focus on the evacuation. She had never felt more afraid in her life. The defense platform was an old military installation, mostly automated. Taemin linked his neural implants directly to its systems, feeling the station's sensors like extensions of his own body. The enemy fleet was closing in, 12 warships against his single platform. Okay, he muttered to himself. Let's see what a blind man can do. The enemy ships opened fire. Taemin didn't wait for his visual displays. He felt the electromagnetic buildup before the weapons fired, sensed the trajectory of each shot through the distortion of space-time around the energy bolts. He moved the platform with precision, dodging shots that seemed impossible to avoid. Return fire lanced out from his weapons. Taemin targeted not the enemy ships themselves, but their sensor arrays, their communication systems, their coordination networks. He didn't need to destroy them. He just needed to blind them, confuse them, buy time. The enemy fleet adapted quickly, spreading out to surround him. But Taemin had fought in the frontier wars. He understood fleet tactics. More importantly, his neural implants processed electromagnetic data faster than any conventional sensor system. He could predict their movements before they completed them. On the planet's surface, Hana coordinated the final transports. Her heart raced every time she looked up at the sky, where flashes of weapons fire lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. "That's the last group," one of the loading coordinators shouted. "We're full." "Then go," Hana commanded. "All transports immediate departure. Rendezvous at the jump point." The ships lifted off, carrying the last of the colonists. 50,000 lives saved against impossible odds. But as Hana climbed into the final shuttle, she looked up at the battle in orbit and felt her chest tighten with fear. In space, Taimin was running out of options. The defense platform was heavily damaged, multiple systems failing. He had bought the time needed, but now the enemy fleet was closing in for the kill. His weapon systems were offline. His engines were damaged. He couldn't escape. "Taimin," Hana's voice crackled through his communication system. "We're clear. All transports away. Get out of there." "Working on it," he said, trying to sound confident. But his implants told him the truth. The platform's escape pods were destroyed. His shuttle was too far away. He was trapped. Then he felt it. A new electromagnetic signature dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple signatures. A fleet. "This is Commander Yuna of the Valerian Defense Force," a voice boomed across all frequencies. "All hostile vessels stand down immediately. You are in violation of Council Neutral Zone protocols." 6 Valerian warships positioned themselves between Taimin's crippled platform and the enemy fleet. Yuna had called for backup. "Taimin, I have a shuttle inbound to your position," Yuna said. "Hold on," but the platform was breaking apart. Taimin felt the structural integrity collapsing through his implants. An explosion rocked the station and he was thrown against a wall. Something hit his head hard. Pain exploded through his skull and his implants went haywire, overloading with distorted data. He tried to stay conscious, tried to reach the shuttle that was approaching, but the world was spinning, his neural implants feeding him corrupted information. Everything was wrong. Everything was breaking. The last thing he sensed before darkness took him was a familiar thermal signature. Hana. She had refused to leave. She was on that shuttle, coming for him. Then nothing. When Hana found him in the wreckage, Taimin was unconscious and bleeding. She dragged him to the shuttle with strength born of desperation, refusing to let him go. As they escaped the collapsing platform, she held his hand and whispered the words she had promised to say. "I love you, you stubborn blind human. Don't you dare die on me." But Taimin didn't respond. He couldn't hear her. The mission was a success. 50,000 lives saved, but the cost might be higher than either of them had imagined. The success of Taimin and Hana's partnership was becoming impossible to ignore. In just 2 months, they had coordinated relief efforts across 7 sectors, saving thousands of lives and earning praise from multiple council species. Their efficiency reports were being studied by other diplomatic teams. The blind human and the defective Valerian were becoming famous, and not in the way the Valerian High Council had intended. Lord Quan of House Valeris stood in his private office, reading the latest reports with growing anger. Quan was Hana's cousin, a handsome Valerian with perfect scales and ambitious eyes. He had always been in line to inherit leadership of House Valeris, but that required Hana to remain invisible, forgotten, and irrelevant. Her sudden success threatened everything. "This is unacceptable," he said to his assistant, a nervous young Valerian named Subin. The defective one was supposed to fail. The blind human was supposed to be an embarrassment. Instead, they're becoming heroes. "What do you want me to do, my lord?" Subin asked. Quan smiled coldly. "If they want to be heroes, let's give them an impossible task. One where their failure will be public and absolute." Meanwhile, in their shared office, Taimin and Hana were reviewing their next assignment when Commander Yuna arrived. Yuna was one of the few Valerians who had never mocked Hana's appearance. They had served together years ago in the fleet, and Yuna had always valued Hana's strategic mind. "I need to talk to you both," Yuna said, her voice tense. Privately, Taimin sensed the urgency in her thermal signature. "What's wrong?" Yuna locked the door and activated a privacy shield. "Someone has been sabotaging your missions." Hana stood quickly. "What? How?" "I've been reviewing supply records. 3 times in the past month, your shipments have been delayed or rerouted. Each time it looked like a simple bureaucratic error. But I dug deeper. The changes all came from the same terminal in the High Council offices." "Quan's terminal." "My cousin," Hana said bitterly. "Of course, why would he sabotage us?" Taimin asked. "What does he gain?" "Power," Hana explained. Quan is next in line to lead House Valeris, but only if I remain irrelevant. Every success I have threatens his position. If I become too prominent, too successful, people might start asking why the defective cousin is leading relief efforts while the perfect heir does nothing. Taemin's thermal signature showed anger, heat rising. Can we prove it? That's the problem, Una said. Quan covered his tracks well. The evidence I have is circumstantial. The council operates on strict hierarchies. A decorated noble's word against a defective one? They'll side with Quan every time. Then we need to catch him in the act, Hana said. Force him to make a mistake. Or we succeed so spectacularly that his sabotage becomes obvious, Taemin suggested. What's the most impossible mission on the council's agenda right now? Una and Hana exchanged glances. Sanctuary Prime, they said simultaneously. Tell me about it, Taemin said. Hana pulled up a star map on her display. Sanctuary Prime is a colony world in the Velos system. It's caught between 3 warring factions. The council has written it off as impossible to evacuate. 50,000 colonists are trapped there, and the planet will become a battlefield in a matter of weeks, maybe days. And you want to save them, Taemin said. The council said it's impossible. They won't authorize the resources, Una explained. But if you volunteered, they couldn't refuse without looking heartless, Hana finished. And if we succeed, it would be the biggest humanitarian victory in council history. Quan's sabotage would become obvious when compared to our success. And if we fail? Taemin asked. We'd be proving the council right, Hana said quietly, that some things are impossible even for us. It would end my career and probably yours too. Taemin stood and walked to the star map. His implants translated the display into electromagnetic patterns he could interpret. The Velos system was a mess of overlapping territorial claims, military positions, and hostile forces. It was suicide. We'll need a small, fast team, he said. Nothing that looks like a military operation. We go in as a humanitarian mission neutral to all sides. Taemin, this is dangerous, Hana said. More dangerous than anything we've done before. I know. He turned toward her, his expression serious. But those are 50,000 lives. 50,000 people who will die if we do nothing. You taught me that every calculation matters because mistakes cost lives. Well, inaction costs lives too. Hana felt something warm spread through her chest. In 2 months, Taemin had changed from a diplomatic partner to someone she trusted completely. And somewhere along the way, her feelings had shifted into something deeper, something that scared her. Okay, she said, let's do the impossible. Over the next 3 days, they planned the mission with obsessive detail. Hana's logistical genius mapped out evacuation routes, transport schedules, and resource distribution. Taemin studied the electromagnetic signatures of the warring factions' fleets, learning to recognize their movement patterns and communication protocols. Commander Una quietly assembled a team of volunteers, mostly Valerians who respected Hana's competence over her appearance. They worked in secret, knowing that if Quan learned of their plans, he would sabotage them before they could even launch. On the night before their departure, Taemin found Hana on the observation deck again. She stood at the railing looking out at the stars. Couldn't sleep, he asked, walking up beside her. Too much thinking, she admitted. This mission could kill us, you know. I know. And you're still willing to go? Of course. Those people need help, he paused. But I'll admit I have an extra reason now. What's that? Taemin turned toward her, his expression gentle. I want to see you succeed. I want the entire galaxy to see what I see when I sense you working. The brilliance. The dedication. The courage. You deserve recognition, Hana, and I'm going to help you get it. Hana felt her heart beating faster. Why do you care so much? Because somewhere over the past 2 months, you stopped being just my liaison officer. You became my friend. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe something more. The air between them felt electric. Hana had never allowed herself to imagine romance. Who could love someone like her? But Taemin wasn't like anyone else. He saw her in ways no one else could. Taemin, she said softly, you know what I look like to my people. You know that I'm considered hideous, defective. I know what your people say. Taemin replied, but I also know what I sense. When you're passionate about an idea, your thermal signature brightens like a star. When you're solving a problem, your movements become precise and confident. When you laugh, which doesn't happen often enough, the entire room feels warmer. That's what I see. That's what's real to me. Hana reached out and took his hand. After this mission, if we survive, I want to tell you something. Tell me now. No. After. It'll give us both a reason to make sure we succeed. Taman squeezed her hand. Deal. But for the record, I think I already know what you want to say. And I feel the same way. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow they would attempt the impossible. Tonight, they had each other. In his office, Lord Quan reviewed the mission plans that Su Bin had stolen from the secure servers. The defective one and the blind human were going to Sanctuary Prime. Perfect. He made a quick communication to one of the warring factions, sharing the mission's timeline and approach vectors. Let them walk into a trap. Let them fail. Let them die. The pieces were in motion. The conspiracy would play out, and Quan was certain he had won. 3 weeks had passed since Taemin and Hana began working together. Their first assignment was coordinating humanitarian relief efforts in the border systems, where the recent wars had left millions of refugees displaced and starving. It was complex work that required careful planning and precise execution. Hana sat at her desk, reviewing supply manifests on her data pad. Across from her, Taemin listened to audio reports through his neural implants, his fingers moving across a tactile interface that translated data into patterns he could feel. They had fallen into an efficient rhythm, but Hana still kept her emotional distance. The supply convoy to Sector 7 is ready, Hana reported, but the refugee camp there needs medical supplies more than food. Should we reroute some of the medical shipment from Sector 9? Taemin thought for a moment. What's the disease situation in Sector 9? Stable. They had an outbreak last month, but it's contained now. Then yes, reroute 40% of their medical supplies to Sector 7, but increase their food rations to compensate. The psychological impact of having extra food will help morale while they wait for the next medical shipment. Hana's fingers moved across her pad, implementing the changes. Done, that's efficient thinking. That's your expertise showing, Taemin said. I just asked the questions. You knew the answer. Hana paused in her work. Over the past 3 weeks, Taemin had consistently done this. He asked for her input, valued her opinions, and gave her credit for successes. It was strange, unsettling. She kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to reveal this was all an act. Why do you do that? She asked suddenly. Do what? Treat me like an equal. Like my opinions matter. Taemin set down his tactile interface and turned toward her. His blind eyes didn't focus on her face, but somehow she felt seen anyway. Because they do matter. You're brilliant at logistics and strategy. Why wouldn't I listen to you? Because I'm defective, Hana said flatly. Because in Valerian society, physical appearance determines worth. Beautiful people lead, ugly people serve. That's how it's always been. That's ridiculous. That's reality. Not my reality, Taemin said firmly. In my reality, competence matters. Character matters. How you treat people matters. What you look like. That's just genetics and random chance. Why would I judge someone on things they can't control? Hana felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been frozen for years. You really believe that? Of course I do. Hana, I've worked with you for 3 weeks now. You're organized, efficient, and you care about the people we're helping. You stay late reviewing reports to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. You double-check every calculation because you know mistakes cost lives. Those are the things that make someone valuable. Those are the things I see. You can't see anything, Hana said, but her voice was soft, not cruel. Taemin smiled. I see heat signatures. I see electromagnetic patterns. I see how your thermal signature changes when you're focused on a problem. How it spikes when you find a solution. I see how you move with purpose, how you hold yourself with dignity, even when others mock you. Maybe I can't see your scales or your face, but I see you, Hana. The real you. Hana stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need air, she said, and left the office quickly. Taemin sat quietly, sensing her thermal signature disappear down the corridor. He hoped he hadn't pushed too hard. But someone needed to tell her the truth. Someone needed to see her worth. Hana found herself on an observation deck overlooking the city. The sky was dark, filled with stars and the lights of passing ships. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, her reflection staring back at her. She saw what everyone else saw, asymmetrical scales that broke the smooth pattern Valerians prized. A crest that was stunted and uneven, eyes that were slightly different sizes, a jaw that didn't quite align properly, and the limp, the constant reminder of the birth defect that had marked her as inferior from the beginning. Her father had hidden her away when she was young, not out of cruelty, he claimed, but protection. Better to be forgotten than to be a constant target of mockery. So Hana had buried herself in work, in studies, in anything that would prove she had value beyond her appearance. She became an expert in logistics, in military strategy and administrative systems, but it never mattered. She was still just the ugly daughter of House Valaris, kept out of sight like a shameful secret. And then came Taemin, a blind human who somehow saw more clearly than anyone else. "You've been crying," a voice said behind her. Hana turned quickly, wiping her face. Taemin stood in the doorway, his head tilted slightly as his implants mapped the space. "How did you know?" "Your thermal signature. The heat pattern around your eyes changed, and your breathing is different." He walked closer, his movements careful but confident. "I'm sorry if I upset you earlier." "You didn't," Hana said. Then more honestly, "You did, but not in a bad way. Nobody has ever talked to me like that before. Like I matter. Like I'm not just a mistake that House Valaris has to endure." Taemin reached the railing beside her. "Can I tell you something? When I first lost my sight, I wanted to die. I thought my life was over. I was a soldier who couldn't see the enemy. A pilot who couldn't fly. I felt useless, broken. The military offered me a medical discharge, a pension, a quiet retirement. Everyone expected me to take it, but you didn't." "No." "Because a very smart doctor asked me a question. She asked if I defined myself by what I couldn't do, or by what I could do. She told me that disability was often just a mismatch between a person's abilities and society's expectations. Change the expectations and suddenly the disability becomes irrelevant. So you got the implants." "I got the implants," Taemin confirmed. "And I learned to see differently. And you know what? I became a better soldier because of it. I could sense things other people missed. I could coordinate fleet movements by feeling electromagnetic patterns. I could predict enemy positions by tracking thermal signatures. My blindness became an advantage, but only after I stopped letting other people define what I could or couldn't do." Hana was quiet for a long moment. "My people won't change their expectations. Beauty is sacred to Valerians. It's woven into our religion, our laws, our entire culture." "Then maybe it's time someone challenged that," Taemin said. "And maybe that someone is you." "I'm just an administrative officer. Nobody listens to me. You're a member of one of the oldest noble houses. You're brilliant at strategy and logistics. And now you're the liaison officer to Earth's diplomatic mission. People are already watching us, Hana. Our relief efforts are getting attention. Every time we succeed, we prove that competence matters more than appearance. Every success is a small crack in the wall of prejudice. You make it sound easy. It's not easy. It's terrifying. Trust me, I know." Taemin turned toward her, his expression serious. "But you're not alone anymore. We're partners. And I promise you I will never judge you by Valerian standards. I will only judge you by your character and your actions. And so far, you're one of the best people I've ever worked with." Hana felt tears threaten again, but this time they were different. For the first time in her life, someone saw her, really saw her. Not the scales or the limp or the asymmetrical crest, but her. "Thank you," she whispered. "No thanks necessary," Taemin said. "Now should we get back to work? Those refugees in Sector 7 aren't going to help themselves." Hana laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. "Yes, let's go save some lives." They walked back to the office together, and for the first time Hana didn't feel like she was walking alone. The transport ship descended through the purple clouds of Pristine Prime, capital world of the Galactic Council. Inside the passenger bay, Lieutenant Taemin Park sat quietly, his hands resting on his knees. His eyes were closed, but not because he was sleeping. He had been blind for 3 years now, ever since the explosion during the Frontier Wars. But Taemin could see in his own way. The neural implants in his brain painted a picture of the world around him. He could sense the electromagnetic fields of the ship's engines, feel the thermal signatures of the other passengers, and hear sounds that mapped the space like invisible threads. To Taemin, the world was alive with information that sighted people never noticed. "We're approaching the landing platform, Lieutenant," the pilot announced through the speakers. Taemin nodded and stood up. He picked up his bag without fumbling, his movements precise and confident. The other passengers watched him with curiosity. They had heard about the blind human diplomat, but seeing him move so easily surprised them. The ship landed with a soft thud. Taemin walked down the ramp, his implants mapping every step, every change in temperature, every shift in air pressure. The platform was crowded with aliens of different species. He could sense their body heat, the electromagnetic pulses of their communication devices, and the subtle vibrations they made as they moved. A delegation waited for him at the platform's edge. Taemin could sense 3 figures standing in formation. The one in the center radiated more heat than the others, suggesting nervousness or anticipation. "Lieutenant Park," a voice said in heavily accented English. "I am Counselor Dae-hyun of the Valerian Diplomatic Corps. Welcome to Pristine Prime." Taemin bowed slightly, following human custom. "Thank you, Counselor. I'm honored to be here." Dae-hyun's thermal signature shifted, showing discomfort. Good, Taemin thought. The Valerians were known for their pride and their obsession with physical perfection. Having a blind human as Earth's representative probably bothered them. "We have arranged your quarters in the human sector," Dae-hyun continued. "Tomorrow you will meet your liaison officer. She will help you navigate our world and our customs." Something in the way Dae-hyun said "she" made Taemin pause. There was a hint of mockery in his voice, barely concealed amusement. But Taemin said nothing. He had learned long ago that people often underestimated him because of his blindness. Let them. He worked better when expectations were low. The next morning, Taemin was escorted to a cold, formal meeting chamber deep inside the Valerian government complex. His implants told him the room was large, with high ceilings and smooth metal walls. Several people were already present, their heat signatures clustered near the far wall. They were watching, waiting. "Lieutenant Park," Dae-hyun announced. "May I present Lady Hana of House Valeris? She will serve as your liaison officer during your stay." Taemin turned toward the new thermal signature entering the room. What he perceived surprised him. Most Valerians moved with fluid grace, their reptilian bodies perfectly balanced. But this one had a different pattern. Her gait was slightly uneven, suggesting an injury or birth defect, yet her posture was rigid, controlled, dignified. She carried herself like a soldier despite the limp. "Lady Hana," Taemin said, bowing respectfully. "I look forward to working with you." There was a long pause. Taemin could sense the other Valerians in the room shifting, their thermal signatures showing anticipation. They were waiting for something, expecting some reaction from him. "Lieutenant," Hana finally replied. Her voice was steady but cold, each word carefully measured. "I am at your service." "Excellent," Dae-hyun said, and Taemin could hear the smile in his voice. "Lady Hana is one of our most experienced administrative officers. She will ensure all your needs are met." The way he emphasized administrative carried an insult that Taemin didn't fully understand yet. But he could sense Hana's thermal signature tighten, showing barely controlled anger. Whatever was happening here, she was the target of mockery, not just him. The other Valerians left the room, their footsteps echoing. Soon only Taemin and Hana remained. "Shall we discuss our schedule, Lieutenant?" Hana asked, her voice still formal and distant. "Please call me Taemin," he said. "And yes, but first, may I ask you something?" "What? Why do they treat you that way?" Another long pause. Taemin could sense her thermal signature spike with surprise, then carefully flatten again as she regained control. "I don't know what you mean," she said. "Yes, you do," Taemin replied gently. "They were laughing at both of us back there. I'm used to it. People see a blind man and think I'm helpless. But they were mocking you too, why? That is not your concern, Lieutenant." "Taemin, Lieutenant." He smiled slightly, stubborn. He appreciated that. "Fair enough. But I want you to know something. I don't care what they think of either of us. I'm here to do a job and I need a partner I can trust. From what I can tell, you're competent, precise, and professional. That's all that matters to me." Hana's thermal signature showed confusion now, genuine surprise breaking through her careful control. "You can tell all that?" "I can tell more than you think," Taemin said. "I sense that you carry yourself like someone who's been fighting their whole life. Your posture is military straight despite your limp. Your breathing is controlled, trained. You choose your words carefully like someone who knows words can be weapons. And right now you're trying to figure out if I'm mocking you or if I mean what I say." For the first time, Hana's carefully maintained composure cracked. Her thermal signature showed rapid fluctuation, emotion she couldn't quite control. "How?" she asked quietly. Taemin tapped the side of his head. "Neural implants. I lost my eyes in the war, but I gained a different way of seeing. I perceive electromagnetic fields, thermal signatures, vibrations, sounds. I build a map of the world that's probably very different from what you see, but it works. And you really can't see what I look like? Not in the conventional sense, no. I know you're approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall. You have a higher body temperature than humans, suggesting reptilian biology, and you favor your left leg. Beyond that, he shrugged. I have no idea if you have scales, feathers, or purple skin, and I don't care. Hana was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, less guarded. They paired you with me as an insult, Lieutenant. To both of us, I am considered defective by my people. Ugly, broken. They thought a blind human wouldn't know any better, and they could humiliate us both while technically fulfilling diplomatic protocol. I see, Taemin said. Then he smiled. Well, their plan backfired. Because I genuinely don't care about Valerian beauty standards, and I think we might actually work well together. That is, if you're willing to give this partnership a chance. He extended his hand, a human gesture of agreement. For several seconds, Hana didn't move. Taemin could sense her thermal signature showing internal conflict. Years of pain and isolation warring with a tiny spark of hope. Finally, she reached out and took his hand. Her grip was firm, her scales smooth and cool against his skin. One chance, she said. Don't make me regret it. I won't, Taemin promised. Neither of them knew it yet, but that handshake would change both their lives, and eventually, the entire Galactic Council.